I stared at my phone screen, reading my sister's text for the third time. "This is your last warning. Apologize for embarrassing my daughter at her party." My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from pure rage. The audacity of this woman, the sheer nerve she had to demand an apology from me after what had transpired at that party, was almost laughable. But I wasn't laughing, not anymore. Let me back up and explain how I got here, sitting in my living room at 11 o'clock at night, wondering how my relationship with my only sister had deteriorated to this point. My name is Claire, I'm 34 years old, and until 3 weeks ago I thought I had a pretty good relationship with my older sister Monica. We weren't best friends or anything, but we talked regularly, celebrated holidays together, and I genuinely loved my niece, Amber, who had just turned 16. Monica had always been the golden child in our family. She was the first to get married, the first to have kids, the first to buy a house in the suburbs. She married Derek when she was 23, and they seemed happy enough, I suppose. Derek was a successful real estate developer, and Monica loved playing the role of the perfect suburban housewife. She joined the PTA, organized charity events, and made sure everyone knew just how wonderful her life was. Her Instagram was a carefully curated collection of family photos, inspirational quotes, and humble brags about Amber's achievements. I took a different path. I focused on my career as a forensic accountant, stayed single by choice, and lived in a modest downtown apartment that I loved. Monica had always made little comments about my lifestyle, suggesting I was missing out on the real joys of life, meaning marriage and children. I let it slide because that's what you do with family, right? You tolerate their annoying quirks and passive-aggressive comments because they're blood. Amber's 16th birthday party was supposed to be a lavish affair. Monica had been planning it for months, talking about it constantly during our weekly phone calls. She'd rented out a gorgeous venue at a local country club, hired a DJ, a photographer, and even a videographer to capture every moment. The guest list included over 100 people, mostly Amber's friends from her private school, but also extended family and Monica's social circle. I was actually looking forward to the party. I'd bought Amber a generous gift, a beautiful necklace she'd been admiring when we'd gone shopping together a few months earlier. Despite Monica's sometimes overbearing nature, I did love spending time with my niece. Amber was a sweet kid, smart and creative, though I'd noticed she'd been seeming more stressed and withdrawn lately. I'd attributed it to typical teenage stuff and the pressure of her upcoming SATs. The party was on a Saturday evening in early October. I arrived right on time, wearing a nice cocktail dress that Monica had specifically requested we all wear, since everything had to be perfect for the photos. The venue was decorated beautifully with white and gold balloons, flowers everywhere, and Amber's name in huge light-up letters against one wall. It was definitely over the top, but that was Monica's style. Amber greeted me with a hug, and I could immediately tell something was off. She seemed tense, her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, and when I asked if she was having a good time at her own party, she just shrugged and said, "It's fine." But before I could press further, Monica swooped in and whisked Amber away for more photos. I mingled with relatives, chatted with Monica's friends, and tried to enjoy myself. The party was in full swing, music blaring, teenagers dancing, adults congregating near the bar. Everything seemed to be going according to Monica's perfect plan. That's when I noticed Derek acting strangely. Now I need to explain something about Derek. He'd always been friendly toward me, maybe a little too friendly at times, but nothing that ever crossed a serious line. He'd occasionally make comments about how I looked nice, or how he admired my independence, things that made me slightly uncomfortable but that I dismissed as him just being chatty. Monica never seemed bothered by it, so I never made it an issue. But that night Derek was behaving oddly. He kept disappearing, checking his phone constantly and looking nervous. At one point I saw him slip out to the terrace, and curiosity got the better of me. I'm not usually nosy, but something about his demeanor set off alarm bells. Maybe it was my professional instincts, those same instincts that helped me uncover financial fraud in my day job. I casually made my way to the terrace, staying back far enough that he wouldn't notice me. He was on his phone, talking in a hushed, urgent tone. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught fragments. "Not now. I told you this weekend was impossible. She doesn't know anything. Soon, I promise. Love you too." My stomach dropped. "Love you too." Those 3 words echoed in my head. Was Derek having an affair? My immediate thought was of Monica, of how devastated she would be. Despite our differences, she was still my sister, and the thought of Derek betraying her made me furious. I stepped back inside before he could see me, my mind racing. What should I do with this information? Should I confront Derek, tell Monica? Maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe it was an innocent conversation. But who ends an innocent conversation with "love you too" while sneaking away from their daughter's birthday party? I decided to keep watching. Over the next hour, I observed Derek more carefully. He received several texts that made him visibly anxious. He drank more than usual. and he kept glancing at Monica with what I could only describe as guilt written all over his face. Then came the moment that everything exploded. Monica had gathered everyone for the cake-cutting ceremony. Amber was standing in front of this enormous three-tiered cake, surrounded by friends and family, fake smile plastered on her face as everyone sang happy birthday. The videographer was capturing it all, and Monica was beaming with pride at how perfect everything was. As the song ended and Amber was about to blow out the candles, Derek's phone rang. Not just vibrated, but rang loudly with a ringtone that cut through the music. Everyone turned to look at him. His face went pale as he fumbled to silence it, but it was too late. Monica shot him an irritated look, clearly annoyed that he disrupted her perfectly orchestrated moment. But here's where things got interesting. Amber's expression changed completely when she heard that ringtone. The color drained from her face, and she looked at her father with what I can only describe as pure horror and recognition. In that split second, I knew. Somehow, Amber knew about the affair. Derek quickly excused himself, practically running toward the bathroom. Monica tried to redirect everyone's attention back to Amber and the cake, but the moment was broken. Amber looked like she was about to cry, and several of her friends were asking if she was okay. I don't know what possessed me to do what I did next. Maybe it was protective instinct for my niece, maybe it was anger at Derek, or maybe it was just the investigator in me that couldn't let this go. I followed Derek. I found him outside the venue in the parking lot, on his phone again. This time I got closer, and this time I heard more than I wanted to. "I can't do this anymore," he was saying. "The guilt is eating me alive. She deserves to know the truth. They both do." There was a pause as he listened to whoever was on the other end. "I don't care about the money anymore. This is bigger than that. This is about doing the right thing." Money? What money? This wasn't just about an affair. There was something more going on here. Derek turned and saw me. The look on his face was one of absolute panic. "Claire, this isn't, I can explain." "Can you?" I asked coldly. "Can you explain why you're having whispered phone conversations about love and money and truth while your daughter's birthday party is happening inside? Can you explain why Amber looked absolutely devastated when your phone rang?" He ran his hand through his hair, looking defeated. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is, Derek, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're having an affair and somehow Amber knows about it." "I'm not having an affair," he said quietly. "I swear to you it's not that." "Then what is it?" He looked at me for a long moment, seeming to wrestle with something internally. Finally, he said, "I can't tell you, not yet, but I promise you I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to fix a mistake, a huge mistake." "Does Monica know about this mistake?" His silence was answer enough. "You need to tell her," I said. "Whatever this is, she deserves to know." "I will," he said, "soon. I just need to get through tonight." I should have left it there. I should have gone back inside, kept my mouth shut, and let Derek handle his own mess. But I couldn't stop thinking about Amber's face, about how miserable she'd looked all evening, about how this secret, whatever it was clearly affecting her too. I went back inside and found Amber. She was sitting alone at a table in the corner, despite being the guest of honor at a party full of people. I sat down next to her. "Hey, birthday girl, you okay?" She looked at me with tears welling up in her eyes. "I just want this party to be over." "What's going on, Amber? And please don't say nothing. I can tell something's really wrong." She bit her lip, looking torn. "I can't talk about it. I promised I wouldn't say anything." "Promised who? Your dad?" Her eyes widened. "You know." "I don't know anything specific," I admitted, "but I know something's going on with your dad, and I know it's upsetting you. You can talk to me, sweetheart, whatever it is." Amber looked around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned in close. "My dad has another family." The words hit me like a physical blow. Another family, not just an affair, but another entire family. "What do you mean?" I whispered. "He has another wife and a son. They live in North Carolina. I found out by accident a few months ago when I saw texts on his iPad. I confronted him and he admitted everything. He's been living a double life for years, Claire, years. And he made me promise not to tell Mom because he said it would destroy her, and he needed time to figure out how to handle it." I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. Derek wasn't just having an affair. He was a bigamist with a whole secret family, and he'd put the burden of this secret on his 16-year-old daughter. "Amber, your mom needs to know about this." "I know," she said, tears now streaming down her face, "but I don't know how to tell her. And Dad keeps saying he'll handle it, but he never does. And that was her on the phone just now, his other wife, Melissa. She's pregnant, Claire. He's going to have another baby with her. The pieces were falling into place. The phone conversations about truth and money, Derek's guilt and anxiety, Amber's withdrawal and stress. This poor kid had been carrying this horrible secret for months, watching her father lie to her mother every single day. "This isn't your burden to carry," I told her firmly. "You should never have been put in this position. But if I tell Mom, it'll ruin everything. Our family will fall apart." "Sweetie, I hate to say this, but your family is already broken. Your mom just doesn't know it yet, and she deserves to know the truth. Living a lie isn't protecting her, it's just prolonging the inevitable and making it worse." Amber sobbed quietly, and I held her while she cried. My heart was breaking for this kid who should have been enjoying her sweet 16, but instead was dealing with her father's massive betrayal. After Amber calmed down, I made a decision. I'm going to tell your mom. Amber's eyes went wide with panic. "No, you can't. She'll be so mad at me for keeping it secret." "She won't be mad at you. You're the victim here too. But Amber, this needs to come out. Your mom deserves to know what kind of man she's married to." "Please, Claire, not tonight, not at my party. It'll ruin everything." She had a point. As much as I wanted to drag Derek by his collar and expose him in front of everyone, doing it at Amber's birthday party would only make things worse for her. "Okay," I agreed. "Not tonight, but tomorrow I'm telling her. I'll take the responsibility. You don't have to be involved." Amber nodded, looking relieved and terrified at the same time. The rest of the party was torture. I had to smile and make small talk while watching Monica gush about what a wonderful husband Derek was, while watching Derek himself put on this performance of being a devoted father and husband. It made me sick. When it was time to open presents, Amber opened mine and gave me a genuine smile for the first time all evening. "Thank you, Aunt Claire. It's beautiful." "You're welcome, sweetheart. You deserve beautiful things and people who are honest with you." I saw Derek flinch at that comment, but Monica didn't seem to notice the subtext. Finally, mercifully, the party ended. I told Monica I'd call her tomorrow. We needed to talk about something important. She was riding high on the success of her perfect party and just waved me off, saying she'd be busy cleaning up and recovering tomorrow, but we could talk next week. "No, Monica, tomorrow. It's important." Something in my tone must have gotten through because she frowned. "Is everything okay?" "We'll talk tomorrow," I repeated and left before she could press further. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out the best way to tell Monica that her entire marriage was a lie. There was no good way to deliver news like this, but I had to try. The next morning I called Monica and asked if I could come over. She agreed, though she sounded curious and slightly annoyed. When I arrived at her house, Derek's car was gone. Good, this would be easier without him there. Monica answered the door in her robe, looking tired but happy. "Come in. I was just having coffee and looking at the photos from last night. Everything turned out so perfectly, didn't it?" I followed her into her pristine kitchen, my heart pounding. "Monica, we need to talk about Derek." She poured me a cup of coffee. "What about him?" "You might want to sit down for this." Now she looked concerned. "Claire, you're scaring me. What's going on?" I sat down at her kitchen table and took a deep breath. "Derek has been lying to you. He's been lying to you for years." "What are you talking about?" "He has another family, another wife, a son, and apparently another baby on the way. He's been living a double life." Monica stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. Then she laughed, actually laughed. "That's ridiculous. Derek travels for work, yes, but another family. Claire, where is this coming from? Did you hit your head or something?" "I'm completely serious. Amber found out months ago. She saw texts on Derek's iPad. She confronted him, and he admitted everything but made her keep it secret. Monica, that poor kid has been carrying this burden all by herself, watching him lie to you every day." The smile faded from Monica's face. "Amber knows about this alleged other family." "Yes, and it's not alleged. Derek admitted it to her." "I don't believe you," but I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. "Call Amber, ask her yourself. Or better yet, look at Derek's phone records. Check his credit card statements. I'm a forensic accountant, Monica. I can help you find the evidence if you need it, but I'm telling you the truth." Monica's hand was shaking as she set down her coffee cup. "Why would he do that? Why would he marry someone else? We're married. That's not even legal." "I don't know all the details, but Amber said the woman's name is Melissa and they live in North Carolina. She's pregnant right now. Monica stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Get out. What? Get out of my house. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, Claire, but I don't appreciate you coming into my home the day after my daughter's beautiful party and making up vicious lies about my husband. Monica, I'm not making this up. Yes, you are. You've always been jealous of me, of my life, my family. You've never understood what it means to have a real partnership, a real family, and now you're trying to destroy mine with these insane accusations. That's not fair and you know it. I'm telling you this because you're my sister and you deserve to know the truth. The truth, Monica's voice was rising. The truth is that you've always looked down on my choices. You think you're so superior with your career and your independence. Well, I'm happy, Claire. I have a beautiful home, a loving husband, and a wonderful daughter, and you can't stand it. Monica, please just listen. No, get out, and don't come back until you're ready to apologize for these disgusting lies. I tried to reason with her, but she wouldn't listen. She literally pushed me toward the door and slammed it behind me. I stood on her porch, stunned. I'd expected shock, denial, anger at Derek, but I hadn't expected her to turn on me like that. I tried calling her later that day. She didn't answer. I tried texting. No response. I even reached out to Amber to make sure she was okay, but Monica had apparently taken her phone away. 2 days later, I got an email from Monica's attorney with a cease and desist letter, demanding I stop harassing Monica with false and defamatory statements about her husband. I couldn't believe it. She was actually threatening legal action against me for trying to help her. I spent the next week trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't contact Monica, I couldn't reach Amber, and Derek was apparently continuing his double life without consequences. It was maddening. Then, exactly 1 week after Amber's party, I received a text from Monica. Not an apology or an acknowledgement that I'd been telling the truth, but that message: "This is your last warning. Apologize for embarrassing my daughter at her party." Embarrassing Amber at her party. I hadn't done anything at the party except try to comfort a distressed teenager. Unless Derek had somehow twisted the narrative to make it seem like I'd caused a scene. I was furious, but I was also starting to realize something. Monica didn't want to know the truth. She was so invested in her perfect life, her perfect image, that she would rather attack me than face reality. Fine, if she wanted to live in denial, that was her choice, but I wasn't going to apologize for telling the truth. I didn't respond to her text. Instead, I did what I do best. I investigated. Using my professional skills and resources, I started digging into Derek's finances. It wasn't hard to find what I was looking for once I knew what I was looking for. Derek had a whole separate set of bank accounts, credit cards, even a business registered in North Carolina under a slightly different name. He'd been funneling money from his real estate business into this secret life for years. I found property records showing a house in Charlotte, North Carolina, purchased 8 years ago under Derek's name and a Melissa Hartwell. I found birth records for a son, Kyle Hartwell, born 7 years ago, father listed as Derek Hartwell. I found social media accounts for Melissa, full of photos of her husband Derek and their son Kyle, with another baby on the way according to her pregnancy announcement posts. The evidence was overwhelming and damning. Derek wasn't just having an affair. He had systematically constructed an entire second life, complete with a marriage that might not be legal, but was certainly real in every practical sense. But the money trail was what really interested me professionally. Derek had been committing financial fraud on a massive scale. He'd been hiding assets from Monica, which would be crucial in a divorce. He'd been using his business to support 2 households while only reporting income for one. And most interestingly, he'd taken out several large loans using the North Carolina property as collateral, loans that would ultimately affect Monica's financial security since they were still legally married. I compiled everything into a detailed report, complete with documentation and evidence. Then I had to make a decision, what to do with it. My first instinct was to send it to Monica, to force her to see the truth, but she'd already rejected the truth once and attacked me for delivering it. Would more evidence change her mind, or would she just dig in deeper? Then I had another idea, a better idea. If Monica wanted to shoot the messenger, fine, but there were other people who would be very interested in this information. I contacted the IRS and filed a report about Derek's potential tax fraud. I contacted the North Carolina Bar Association because it turned out Derek had represented himself as a licensed attorney to some of his North Carolina clients, which he wasn't. I contacted the licensing board for real estate professionals in both states, and I sent copies of everything to Monica's email, but also to her attorney, just to make sure someone on her side saw the evidence. I also did one more thing. I reached out to Melissa in North Carolina through a carefully worded message on social media. I introduced myself as Derek's sister-in-law and suggested she might want to know that Derek was already married to someone else and had been for 18 years. I included just enough proof to be credible. Then I sat back and waited for the dominoes to fall. It took less than 48 hours. Melissa, upon learning that Derek was already married, apparently lost her mind. She contacted Monica directly, sending her photos, marriage certificates from their spiritual wedding ceremony, photos of Derek with Kyle, everything. She also, according to what I learned later, contacted her own attorney to explore fraud charges against Derek. Monica couldn't ignore the evidence when it was coming from the other woman herself, complete with years of documentation and a 7-year-old child. I didn't hear from Monica directly, but I heard from other family members that she'd kicked Derek out of the house, filed for divorce, and was cooperating with multiple investigations into his business practices and financial fraud. 2 weeks after that first text warning, I received another text from Monica. This one simply said, "Can we talk?" I didn't respond immediately. I was still hurt by how she'd treated me, by how she'd attacked me for trying to help her. But eventually, curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet her for coffee. She looked terrible when I saw her. Her hair wasn't perfectly styled, she wasn't wearing makeup, and she looked like she'd aged 10 years. We sat down in the coffee shop, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, Monica said, "You were right about everything." I know. Derek admitted it all once Melissa contacted me. The double life, the second family, the money he'd been hiding, all of it. I nodded, waiting. "I owe you an apology, Claire, a massive apology. You were trying to help me and I attacked you. I threatened you with legal action. I was so awful to you." "Yes, you were." She flinched but continued. "I was in denial. I think part of me knew something was off, but I didn't want to see it. My whole identity was wrapped up in being Derek's wife, in having this perfect family and perfect life. The thought of it all being a lie was too much to face." "So instead, you attacked me." "Yes, and I'm so sorry. You were just trying to protect me and Amber, and I threw it back in your face." I took a sip of my coffee, considering my response. Part of me wanted to let her have it, to tell her exactly how much she'd hurt me, but she looked so broken already. "How's Amber?" I asked instead. Monica's eyes filled with tears. "She's devastated, and she's angry at me for not believing you, for making her carry that secret for so long. She said she tried to tell me multiple times, but I kept saying how wonderful her father was, and she felt like she couldn't. Our relationship is pretty damaged right now." "That's not on you entirely." Derek put her in an impossible position. "I know, but I should have seen the signs. I should have listened when you tried to tell me. Instead, I was so focused on maintaining this image, this facade of perfection." She wiped her eyes. "The divorce is going to be ugly. Derek's facing multiple fraud charges. The IRS is auditing him. His real estate license is being reviewed, and apparently you had something to do with a lot of that." I didn't confirm or deny it. He deserved to face consequences for what he did. "He destroyed everything, our savings, our home equity, our credit. He took out loans and hid them from me. We might lose the house, Claire. Everything I thought we'd built together was a lie funded by illegal activities and hidden assets." "I'm sorry you're going through this." "Are you? Because honestly, I wouldn't blame you if you were enjoying watching my perfect life crumble after how I treated you." I considered her question. "I'm not enjoying your pain, Monica. I never wanted to hurt you, but Derek needed to be held accountable, and you needed to know the truth, even if you didn't want to hear it. That text I sent you, demanding an apology for embarrassing Amber at the party. God, I'm so ashamed of that. Derek told me you'd caused a scene, that you'd confronted him inappropriately and upset Amber. I believed him without even asking you or Amber what actually happened." Of course he lied about it. That's what he does. Monica nodded miserably. "I've been such a fool and such a terrible sister." We talked for another hour. She told me about the full extent of Derek's betrayal, details that made my blood boil. Apparently, he'd been married to Monica when he met Melissa, and he'd told Melissa that Monica was his ex-wife and Amber was from a previous marriage. He'd lied to both of them, kept them separated by geography and deception, and juggled 2 families for nearly 8 years. The financial fraud went even deeper than I'd initially discovered. Derek had been running a sophisticated scheme, using his real estate business to hide assets, launder money, and evade taxes. Both Monica and Melissa were victims of his fraud, and both were cooperating with authorities. "What I don't understand," Monica said, "is why he didn't just divorce me if he wanted to be with Melissa. Why go through all this deception?" "Control," I said, "and money. If he divorced you, he would have had to split assets. This way he got to keep everything and live both lives. It's about greed and ego." Monica shook her head in disbelief. "I was married to a monster, and I had no idea." Before we parted, Monica asked, "Can you forgive me for how I treated you?" I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw genuine remorse. "Eventually, yes, but it's going to take time, Monica. You really hurt me." "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right between us." Over the following months, I watched as Derek's world collapsed. The legal system moved slowly, but it moved. He was charged with bigamy, tax fraud, wire fraud, and a host of other crimes. Both Monica and Melissa filed for divorce. His business was seized as part of the fraud investigation. The house in North Carolina was foreclosed on when the loans came due and Derek couldn't pay. Monica had to sell the family home, but she and Amber moved into a nice apartment and started rebuilding their lives. Amber started therapy to deal with the trauma of everything she'd been through. Monica got a job for the first time in years, working as an event planner, putting her party planning skills to professional use. Our relationship slowly healed. Monica was genuinely trying to make amends, and I appreciated the effort. She'd learned a hard lesson about valuing image over truth, about attacking people who were trying to help her, and about the danger of living in denial. One day, about 6 months after that initial party, Monica and I were having dinner together. Amber was there too, and we were actually having a good time, laughing and talking like a real family. "I want to show you something," Monica said, pulling out her phone. She showed me a text message from Derek. He was in jail awaiting trial, and he'd apparently been trying to contact her, begging for forgiveness and claiming he still loved her. "What did you say?" I asked. Monica smiled, a real smile, not the fake, perfect one she used to wear. "I blocked his number. I don't owe him a response. I don't owe him anything." Amber high-fived her mom. "Good for you, Mom." "I learned from the best," Monica said, looking at me. "My sister taught me that you don't apologize for telling the truth, and you don't accept apologies from people who aren't truly sorry." I raised my glass. "I'll drink to that." But the story doesn't quite end there. See, Derek's trial was set for 8 months after Amber's party. The prosecution had built a solid case, and Derek's attorneys were trying to negotiate a plea deal. As part of the evidence gathering, I was contacted by the prosecution since I'd been the one to initially file the IRS complaint and had compiled significant evidence. During my meeting with the prosecutors, they asked me why I'd gone to such lengths to investigate Derek and report him. I explained the situation, how Monica had initially rejected the truth, how Amber had been suffering, and how Derek had tried to turn Monica against me. The lead prosecutor, a sharp woman named Amanda Chen, looked at me thoughtfully. So this was partly revenge. I considered the question. It was partly justice. Derek had committed crimes and deserved to be held accountable. But yes, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't an element of satisfaction in seeing him face consequences after what he put my niece through, what he put my sister through, and what he tried to do to my relationship with them. Amanda nodded. "Well, thanks to your thorough documentation, we have one of the strongest fraud cases I've seen in years. He's looking at significant prison time." Derek ended up taking a plea deal, 12 years in federal prison for fraud and tax evasion. The bigamy charge was harder to prosecute because his marriage to Melissa wasn't legally recognized, but the fraud charges were ironclad. Both Monica and Melissa had to testify at the sentencing hearing. I attended to support Monica. Seeing Derek in his orange jumpsuit, looking defeated and small, I felt no pity for him. He'd made his choices, and now he was facing the consequences. When it was Monica's turn to give a victim impact statement, she stood up with dignity and strength I'd never seen in her before. She talked about the financial devastation his crimes had caused, but more importantly, she talked about the emotional damage. She talked about the burden he'd placed on his 16-year-old daughter, forcing her to keep his secrets. She talked about the years of lies and deception. And she talked about how he'd tried to turn her against her own sister, when that sister was trying to help her. "You didn't just betray me," Monica said, looking directly at Derek. "You betrayed our daughter. You betrayed Melissa and Kyle. You betrayed everyone who trusted you. And the saddest part is I don't think you even understand the magnitude of what you've done. You've destroyed so many lives in service of your own ego and greed." Derek tried to offer an apology, but even to me, it rang hollow. He was sorry he'd been caught, sorry he was facing consequences, but I didn't believe he was truly sorry for what he'd done. The judge sentenced him to 12 years and Derek was led away. Monica didn't cry. She just took a deep breath and said, "It's over. We can finally move forward." In the aftermath, Monica and I became closer than we'd ever been. She'd learned not to value appearance over substance, and I'd learned that sometimes the people we love need to hit rock bottom before they can see the truth. Amber was thriving in therapy and had even started a blog about her experience, helping other teens who were dealing with family secrets and the burden of keeping their parents' lies. Melissa, despite being in North Carolina, actually reached out to Monica, and they formed an unlikely friendship. They'd both been victims of the same man's deception, and they found comfort in talking to someone who truly understood what they'd been through. Kyle, Melissa's son, was in therapy too, trying to understand why his father wasn't who he thought he was. One evening, about a year after that fateful party, Monica and I were sitting on her apartment balcony, drinking wine and watching the sunset. "Do you remember that text I sent you?" Monica asked, "the one demanding you apologize." "Which one? You sent several." She laughed ruefully. "Fair point, but that first one, the 'this is your last warning' text, I was so self-righteous, so sure I was in the right. You were protecting what you thought was the truth. I understand that now." "No, I was protecting a lie because it was more comfortable than facing reality. There's a difference." She turned to look at me. "You know what the worst part is? Amber told me she'd tried to hint at what was happening. Little comments about Dad being away a lot, questions about whether I ever worried about Dad's fidelity, things like that. And I shut her down every time. I was so invested in the fantasy of my perfect marriage that I ignored my own daughter's cries for help." "You can't change the past, Monica. All you can do is be there for her now." "I know, and I am. We're building a new relationship based on honesty and truth, not perfection and pretense." She paused. "I need to ask you something. When you investigated Derek, when you reported him to all those agencies, was any part of you getting back at me for how I treated you?" I thought about it honestly. Maybe a little. I was hurt and angry that you'd chosen to believe Derek over me, that you'd threatened legal action against me for trying to help. But mostly, I wanted him to face justice. He'd committed crimes, Monica, real crimes that harmed real people. Even if you and I had never had our falling out, I would have reported what I found. I believe you, and I'm grateful, even though it destroyed my life as I knew it. Because you know what? The life I have now, it's smaller and harder and less glamorous, but it's real. It's honest. And that matters more than I ever realized. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Monica said, "I've been thinking about writing a book about my experience, about the danger of valuing image over truth, about what happens when you build your life on someone else's lies." "I think that's a great idea. It could help a lot of people." "Would you help me write it? I think your perspective is important too. The perspective of someone who saw the truth and tried to help, even when it cost you." "I'd be honored." That book, when we finally published it 2 years later, became a surprising bestseller. It resonated with people who'd been in similar situations, who'd chosen comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths, or who'd been punished for trying to help someone in denial. We went on talk shows together, did book signings, and used our platform to help others. But more than the book's success, what mattered was that Monica and I had rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. Amber had healed and was thriving in college, studying psychology and planning to become a therapist to help others dealing with trauma. And Derek was in prison, where he belonged, facing every day the consequences of his choices. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled the situation. They ask if maybe I should have been more gentle with Monica, given her more time to process, not gone to the authorities so quickly. My answer is always the same. No, I don't regret it. The truth needed to come out, Derek needed to be held accountable, and Amber needed to be freed from the burden of her father's secrets. Could I have handled some things better? Sure. Maybe I could have been more patient with Monica's initial denial. Maybe I could have given her more evidence before expecting her to believe such a shocking truth. But ultimately, I did what I thought was right, and I stand by those choices. The last time I saw Derek was at a parole hearing 5 years into his sentence. He was up for early release, and both Monica and Melissa attended to argue against it. I went to support them. Derek looked older, grayer, diminished. When he saw us sitting together, Monica, Melissa, Amber, and me, all united in our opposition to his release, something shifted in his expression. Maybe it was finally understanding the magnitude of what he'd lost. Maybe it was just self-pity. Hard to say. His parole was denied, and we walked out of that hearing room together, 4 women who'd been hurt by the same man but who'd found strength in each other. You know, Melissa said as we had lunch afterward, in a weird way, Derek's betrayal was the best thing that ever happened to me. It hurt like hell at the time, but it forced me to build a real life, not one based on lies and half-truths. Monica nodded in agreement. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm happier now than I was in my perfect suburban life. I have real relationships, real accomplishments, a real sense of self. Amber raised her glass of soda. Here's to the truth, even when it hurts. We all clinked glasses, and I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Looking back now from the distance of time and healing, I can see that text from Monica in a different light. This is your last warning. Apologize for embarrassing my daughter at her party. She'd meant it as a threat, a final ultimatum before cutting me out of her life. But in reality, it was her last warning to herself. Her last chance to cling to the comfortable lie before the truth came crashing down around her. And when she chose to attack me instead of investigating what I'd told her, she set in motion events that would ultimately free her from a life built on deception. I never did apologize, and I never will, because I had nothing to apologize for. I told the truth, I protected my niece, and I held a criminal accountable for his actions. If that embarrassed anyone, it was Derek who should have been embarrassed, not Amber, not Monica, and certainly not me. The story of that text, that party, and everything that followed taught me valuable lessons about family, truth, and the price of living authentically. It taught Monica that perfection is a prison, and that real love and real relationships can only exist in the light of honesty. It taught Amber that she should never have to carry an adult's secrets, and that speaking the truth, even when it's hard, is always the right choice. And it taught Derek, well, I hope it taught Derek that you can't build a life on lies without eventually facing the consequences. Though given his continued attempts to contact Monica claiming he'd been misunderstood, I'm not sure that lesson has fully sunk in. These days, Monica and I talk several times a week. We're planning a vacation together next summer, just the two of us, to celebrate 5 years since the truth came out. Amber is engaged to a wonderful person who knows her whole story and loves her anyway. Melissa has built a successful career and is dating someone honest and kind. And I'm still doing what I do best, uncovering the truth, no matter how ugly it might be. Sometimes the truth hurts, sometimes it destroys what we thought we knew, but it also has the power to set us free, to give us the chance to build something real and lasting. And that, I've learned, is worth any amount of temporary pain or discomfort. So no, Monica, I won't apologize for embarrassing your daughter at her party, because I didn't embarrass her. Her father did that all on his own. I just refused to be complicit in the lie. And that's a choice I'll never regret.